Welcome back. It's Tim and Julie Harris. Julie, welcome to today's podcast.
Thank you. It's going to be a fun show.
It is 8 must-know buyer facts for agents who want to win in 2025. And remember, you want these notes? I assure you that you do. You need to go to harrisrealestatedaily.com, and Julie has prepared 3 pages of notes for you. So just go to harrisrealestatedaily.com. It's where all of our notes are available for you to instantly download and share with other folks in your business or personal life. In the meantime, make sure that you are taking notes along the way, whether you're a subscriber to the newsletter or not. Oh, did I mention the newsletter doesn't cost you anything? So you're out of excuses. Just go to harrisrealestatedaily.com. All right, Julie, let's go. 8 must-know buyer facts for agents who want to win in 2025.
Yes, new statistics mean new expectations. Today's home buyers are navigating a maze of stress, sometimes sticker shock, and uncertainty. They're cautious, but they're looking for somebody they can trust to lead the way. That's where you come in. So let's talk about some data, some clarity, some confidence, so you can talk the talk and lead the way. And it says 8 must-know buyer facts. There's a whole bunch more than that. We're just going to have kind of 8 sections. We probably won't get to all of it, so I'm glad you mentioned the newsletter. The first one is communication wins over being concerned with commission. Remember, we all lived through the drama of the commission lawsuits, and we all were living in fear that the buyer side commission would just be in the dumpster by now. But let's look at some facts. 46% of buyers chose their agent based on responsiveness and availability. Only 24% say they prioritized commission cost, and 87% of buyers still closed with a real estate agent even if they started online. And we all know that buyers do start online. So let's look at the actual commission skinny here, shall we? Because
Sure.
Agents love to banter this about online and speculate and make things up. National average, as of today, is 2.79%. That's actually up from 2024. Who would have thought that? In 2024, the average was 2.3%. Most fall across the country because, it's not exactly the same everywhere. Most buyer side commissions fall between 2.5% to 3% range. More buyers are signing buyer agent agreements to formalize compensation. So all of this is going very good direction for agents. You don't need to discount your value. You need to communicate better. Presence, leadership, and expert guidance are what today's buyers are truly paying for. So before you go convincing yourself that you don't want to follow up with those buyers because it's just too scary to talk to them about signing with you, the fact is they are willing to sign. And the fact is you are very likely to end up, maybe even higher than you would last year with your commissions. What are your thoughts on this, Tim?
So start with the mindset that unless you're only dealing with first-time home buyer type stuff, that virtually every one of your buyers is actually a seller in disguise. So you've got to use
stats on that, by the way, coming up.
Good. So I won't step on too many of your points then. So use your buyer pre-qualification, the buyer pre-qualification script you get as part of Premier Coaching, and ask the questions to determine whether or not they actually have homes to sell. The script is written so that elegantly and effortlessly is part of a natural conversation where it's just going to come out that they have a house for sale. It is so simple. It's the greatest way ever to generate listing leads, is to just get into your mind that most of your buyers actually have homes to sell. And I wrote this down as well. Why have commission rates gone up? If you would have believed let's just say, news cycles from the previous years, you would have believed it's because evil agents and a cabal of fat bald men smoking cigars that are price fixing and all this other crap. Nope, that wasn't what actually was happening. And I'll go to some of you who are thinking that real estate agents are somehow going to be an irrelevant part of the transaction. That's not true either. Because here's the bottom line. Real estate agents are in demand because there are a lot of buyers that want to work with a real estate agent. And if there wasn't, there would be no real estate agents in demand. How do I know that? Because the commission rates are increasing. Why are commission rates increasing? And this has happened. Julie and I have been doing this for 3 decades, and every single time where it's starting to be even a balanced market, let alone a buyer's market, sellers and builders have to start offering more of an incentive, aka buyer agent commission, to get the properties shown. So it's just market forces trying to create more of an incentive to get the properties sold. If you want to know the outcome, you just follow the incentives. And the incentives are, in a market economy like what we're experiencing for the most part, housing is a little bit socialized, but that's a different topic, that the commission rates are exactly tied to what market demand is, not some cabal of fat old bald men smoking cigars. So we're seeing that play out. You see these salacious headlines, commission rates are too high. So-and-so in the government thinks commission rates are too high. Nah, read into it and you'll discover commission rates always follow what the market forces dictate. If, for example, buyer agents weren't a value, commission rates on the buy, there would be no buyer agent commission. There's a buyer agent commission because guess why? Buyers want to use an agent because they can get access to most of the data anymore. So you can't just say, well, buyer agents are only relevant because we've been holding the best information about real estate behind lock and key. These are the benefits of having been in this industry for as long as Julie and I have. None of these Mickey Mouse conversations are new. And they sort of go through these cycles. So buyer agent commissions are too high. Real estate commissions are too high. Determined by who? Some know-it-all professor at some university you've never heard of before that decided to write a PhD dissertation on buyer agent commissions or commissions in general. That's where a lot of these news cycles come from, is some sort of, know-it-all type who never has sold real estate before, writing some sort of paper that's going to say consumers are being screwed. I got news for you. Consumers are getting the best end of the bargain when hiring a real estate agent, whether it be on the buyer or the seller side, because we don't get paid until they transact, right? Whether it be your buyer on the buyer side, where you're giving up your expertise and a lot of your time, or on the seller side, we're giving up your expertise and your time, and sometimes you're actually having to forward or essentially front load the listing with your own money. You guys get it? Consumers have the best deal on planet Earth when it comes to buying or selling real estate because of the way the industry is set up. Why am I telling you this? Do not ask anybody. Do not read any article that's sort of guessing that AI is going to make agents irrelevant, or somehow some consumer watchdog organization is going to make agents irrelevant. It's never going to happen because consumers want to use real estate agents, full stop.
Which leads to our next point. Why is that? Again, these are from surveys from actual recently closed buyers. Buyers are stressed. They have a lot of second guessing going on. 46% said the process was more stressful than they expected. 28% said they had buyer's remorse, and 23% felt financially worse off. They need your guidance. They need your counseling. You need to take the stress away from them. How much of this is because expectations weren't set? How much is this because nobody did a buyer net sheet to let them know that it wasn't just about their down payment, they had some upfront costs as well. So that's where a caring and competent buyer's agent who sits them down, does a buyer presentation with them, is an ethical real estate professional, and very clearly shows your value. I mean, they're telling you, 46% say they're stressed out, more stressed out than they thought they would be going into it. Back to you, Tim.
Well, so Julie and I created a designation called Ethical Real Estate Professional, which is included with Premier Coaching. If you guys want to know what it's all about, just go to ethicalrealestateprofessional.com. Now, one of the advantages of the Ethical Real Estate Professional designation is you get a complete buyer pre-appointment essentially presentation. It's a pack. You can see it when you go to the website. You'll see it. When you go to Premier Coaching, just scroll to premiercoaching.com, scroll down, you'll see what the product looks like. It's a folder that essentially pre-sells why that buyer is going to want to sign exclusively with you. It's talking about commissions. It's talking about what you're going to do to find them a home. It's talking about your guarantees. It's talking about all these things.
What's the buying process? All those stressful things that, you know that you should be talking about with them, but usually most agents just react to the buyer freaking out halfway through their transaction, or worse yet, they'll ghost you because they don't feel like they're getting the attention they deserve.
Right. So you can learn more about Ethical Real Estate Professional. Julie and I talk a lot about it on the masterminds we've been doing. You can, again, if you just want to hit the easy button, go to the mastermind. We're going to do 3, I think, in the next week or so, harrismastermind.com. And you can attend the mastermind. And we do talk about the ethical real estate professional designation. But the moral of the story is it's a turnkey branding solution that will truly differentiate yourself in the marketplace. And again, it's not just a brand or a logo or some fancy this or the other thing. It's a complete business system that includes a pre-listing pack, which includes a buyer presentation, which includes a buyer pre-appointment presentation. Everything is done for you. So definitely go click the link below to join the mastermind. It's harrismastermind.com. Or if you just want to see what Ethical Real Estate Professional is all about, just go to ethicalrealestateprofessional.com. And we do include it with Premier Coaching. So just do keep that in mind. If you're in Premier Coaching right now, level 13 is your earning of the Ethical Real Estate Professional designation. So if you want to join Ethical Real Estate, if you want to join Premier Coaching now to get Ethical Real Estate Professional, you can join as a VIP, and you don't have to wait 12 months before you get the EREP designation. You just got it all up front. Go to the mastermind. You'll learn more about it. harrismastermind.com. It is without a doubt one of the best products. Well, I mean, aside from our book, and probably this podcast. It's one of the best things that Julie and I have ever created. It's what we wish we would have had when we were selling real estate. We did have a pre-listing pack, but the pre-listing pack we have for sellers as far as the REP, and the one we created for the buyers is just incredible. Check it out yourself. Let me know what you think. Just go to premiercoaching.com, or again, you can learn more about it if you go to the mastermind. All the links are down below in the show description. We show the pages and all the rest of it when you go to the mastermind. All right, Julie, let's go on to the next point.
Okay, so points 3 and 4 are just some stats and facts that you should be aware of. Just 24% of 2024 buyers were actually first-time buyers. That's down from 32%. So the first-time buyer pool is shrinking. But point number 4 shows us that boomers are back. Often, we like this, all cash. They don't care about interest rates, do they? 42% of recent buyers are baby boomers. For a long time, they were sitting on the sidelines. The different reports, but about 32% of those sales are all cash. That's the highest rate of all cash closings in a decade. So before you convince yourself that nobody's buying because rates are high, realize that 42% of buyers are baby boomers, and of those, 32% of them are 100% cash. So keeping it real here. Now, you mentioned earlier, most buyers are also sellers. Most buyers are, 74% of buyers finance their purchase, 91% of first-time buyers finance, 69% of repeat buyers. But because repeat buyers usually need equity to buy again, they deduce that about 70% of buyers have to sell first.
Well, hold on. So level off there.
Yeah.
That right there should be the biggest takeaway from today's podcast, what you just said, right? 71% of the time when a buyer shows up in your life, they've actually got a house to sell.
That's right.
And that's incredible.
And that's actually going up.
Yeah. So, and one of the things we teach you in Premier Coaching, we've talked about it on the show as well, is where are you going to find those, motivated seller leads for free? Well, you take some listings, and from those listings, how do you go about getting listings? We show you in Premier Coaching. So once you've got a handful of listings, you're going to get a lot of buyer calls. Don't treat those buyer leads as buyer leads. Make them prove that they're just a buyer lead by asking them the questions in the pre-call script to vet out whether they have houses to sell. And depending on what the price point is, you'll be shocked how many 71% are going to have houses to sell. You now, because you've learned how to be a listing agent, are able to take more listings. So some of you have never had this experience. If you have one decent listing, it doesn't even have to be a great one, you're going to get so many buyer leads if you just do a little bit of, just a tiny amount of, essentially work to generate the buyer lead. Resist the temptation to generate a buyer lead and put them into some sort of filter. Generate the buyer lead, call them back, pre-qualify them, or ask them the questions in the first place. There's no callback necessary. Do open houses, follow the plan that we give you, and you're going to be self-generating listing leads with no referral fee faster than you can possibly imagine. Some of you have never have heard that before because you've gotten the business and been told from day one, just buy buyer leads. And what we're telling you is from day one, just become a listing agent, because everybody else is buying buyer leads. You focus on becoming a listing agent, and you'll have to beat the buyers off with a stick. Proven fact.
Buyers are a byproduct of listings. Some listings are a byproduct of buyers. So follow up on everyone with urgency and use good scripts so you can uncover those listings, because listings are the key to happiness, of course. Okay, so we have next is a point that we talked about yesterday, but mortgage rates remain elevated. So what does that mean? We're talking about buyers a lot today. You have to know about rate buy downs, adjustable rate options, and how to negotiate for seller paid credits. We have done entire podcasts dedicated to just that, how to understand rate buy downs, adjustable rates, stuff like that. You might think of that as creative financing back when we were selling real estate, because, we did actually sell real estate. That was a fairly common thing. There were tons, probably hundreds of transactions where we closed those 723 loans, where the rate was locked in for 7 years and then it adjusted for the next 23. Most of the time they relisted with us and had already bought again in those 7 years. So you have to know about those things. You don't have to know what your mortgage lender knows, but you have to be able to get around those conversations.
Assumable mortgages too, Julie. You and I have done full shows, and we talk about a lot in Premier Coaching. Assumable mortgages are, just to encapsulate it as concisely as I can, you're going to come across folks all the time. 50% of all the homes in the United States are owned outright. The other 50% that have mortgages, something like 85% have rates less than 3.5%. You following me on all this? So that means that most of the homes that are for sale right now, or most of the homes that you're going to find that have mortgages that are going to want to be sold, have really crazy low interest rates. You can actually have an enormous advantage in your marketplace by knowing how to, frankly, just ask the seller to see their mortgage. And then you'll see if it's a Fannie, Freddie, VA, a whole bunch of different types of loans like that. And then what happens when it's an assumable, the buyer has to come up with the difference between the mortgage balance and the market value. The buyer has to come up with that in cash, or, and this is how it works in a market like this. Let's say, for example, it's a $400,000 house. The seller owes $300,000. The mortgage interest rate is 3.5%, obviously less than half of what it is now. So there's a $100,000 difference between if the buyer can buy the house or not. The buyer's got $50,000. The seller, has $100,000 equity. So how are you going to bridge the gap? The seller, in most cases, assuming they don't need the money, will be willing to give the buyer a second mortgage for that $50,000. Julie and I bought our second home this way, our Plant Drive, right? Or wasn't Plant?
Olentangy Forest.
Yeah, exactly. Olentangy Forest.
Yeah.
And so the seller, for 2 years, 3 years, was willing to hold the second mortgage for us. And we made the primary payment to the bank, and then we made him a second payment. And essentially that the primary lender was fine with the fact that there was the down payment money was coming from essentially the owner. They didn't care. It's down payment. That's all they wanted. And as long as we qualified with the second mortgage payment, we were good to go. You guys don't know what I'm talking about, many of you, but this is how real estate is done in a market like this. Imagine knowing how to explain what I just explained to all of you with more detail to a seller in such a way that you're competing for a listing appointment. You're on a competitive listing appointment. You're competing against the best agents in town. And you now are asking the seller, how long have you had this home? Do you know what your interest rate is? And then you'll put two and two together. You'll ask the questions that we give you in Premier Coaching. You'll figure out it's an assumable mortgage. And then without giving a seller too much detail, I probably just gave you too much detail, so I'm sorry. But you'll say, do you realize that we could give your house an unfair advantage in the marketplace because you have an assumable mortgage? And just give them the broad strokes of it. And just the very fact that you had that knowledge and you're being an ethical real estate professional, you have the designation, you're using the material, the presentations and whatnot, and you're bringing that extra little pearl of wisdom to that seller. Don't you think they're going to at least seriously consider listing with you? Because you're showing them. So think about it this way. Does the fact that the house that the buyer that they're listing for sale has an assumable mortgage at 3.5%, does that make the house more valuable to prospective buyers or less valuable? And to assume a mortgage, it's usually just they have to qualify of all the normal ways, but it's not a big underwriting process. The buyer has to qualify. The house already qualifies. It's already been appraised. Everything's good. So the actual cost to assume a mortgage for a buyer's perspective is sometimes hundreds of dollars. So that's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, the closing costs are less.
Yep. You bring all this to that prospective seller. Imagine if it's an expired seller. You now are you've risen. That's how
you're a rock star, man. I mean, I have this conversation with coaching clients. They're like, that expired, like their mind was blown by the fact that they brought it up. And I had one coaching client do a study on this to show how many expireds that sold again quickly were assumables, curiously, because somebody had figured that out. I also see it as an advantage on the buyer side. Maybe you've got a buyer that's struggling to qualify at 7%. You can search your MLS as a buyer's agent for what's assumable, and you might be the only one bidding on that or that even knows how to explain it.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but the problem is that most of the listing agents won't have been skilled enough to ask the seller whether the mortgage is assumable. So you have to assume based on the origination date of the mortgage, if it's 4 or 5 years old, you could pretty much figure out that it's, what is it, Julie, 90% of all loans basically
I think all FHA,
it's right. That's right.
All FHA, all VA, and some conventional. And there is a way to look that up. I know we've posted that in the newsletter before. Yeah.
You could, we have, but you can guess. I mean, if the loan,
like, at least ask the question. Even if it's not, you were smarter than the other agent who didn't bother to bring it up.
Yep. But when are the low rates? 4 or 5 years from now?
Mostly pandemic years.
Right. So if that's if the loan was originated 4 or 5 years ago, you can assuming they haven't refinanced it, that they have a really crazy interest rate on that loan. The previous listing, the seller doesn't know it's assumable. They don't know what the hell assumable is. The previous listing agent didn't know what assumable was. They didn't know what the hell assumable was. But you now put that property for sale. Now here's another little way of thinking about this. You might be in a marketplace and there's a handful of marketplaces like this. We have coaching clients there where the houses, for a variety of reasons, are selling for basically what they were selling for maybe 2 or 3 years ago. I mean, it's happening, and it is. They're not underwater necessarily, but they haven't increased in value, or if they did, now they've lost a little bit of what the market value is. Sellers aren't underwater. I'm not saying that. They're just, but if the mortgage is assumable, and let's say that the down payment that the buyer or the seller put down was 10%, that means that the next buyer, if the seller's going to want their 10% back, essentially comes up with that 10% down payment for that to cash the seller out, and they can assume that seller's mortgage at 3.5% or whatever. Hopefully you're getting your minds blown too, but this is the advantage that you can have in the marketplace when you have the skills necessary. Julie's getting geeked up, I can tell.
Well, there's one more really big advantage, which is, let's say that loan that you're assuming is 5 years old. You have a 25-year mortgage, not a 30-year mortgage.
Yeah. There you go.
So advantage you. And, you want to provide value to your buyers and sellers. This is the type of thing that you need to bring to them.
Yep. This is how, ultimately, guys, if you want to know how to differentiate yourself, it's not your logo or your brand or your website, it's knowledge. Because when you are able, it's something like 90% of all agents are hired based on a seller having a previous relationship with you or you being a referral. Statistical fact. And how do you get to the point where people are going to want to do business with you, let alone share your name with other prospective sellers, their friends and their family, when you know stuff like this? It's not how many videos you have on YouTube. It's not all this other gimmicky stuff. You know what I'm saying is true. So just, guys, take the leap and join Premier Coaching. The link is down below. Julie, get to the next point, please, my dear.
Yes, I was just checking this because this is hot off the presses, actually. I was checking my accuracy here on something. We're going to fast forward to point number 8, 2025 U.S. home sales. Okay, these are things to focus on. Fannie Mae recently upped their projections. This is really exciting. That's why I was checking it. I was like, I don't know, they're a bit higher than other projections. Fannie Mae says 4.92 million. That's a huge increase from the beginning of the year when they were saying they'll scratch it for April 28th.
Wow. Okay. So 4.9, damn, that
almost 5 million. Yeah.
That's incredible. Almost 5 million. But also Fannie Mae predicted last week, the interest rates at the end of the year would be 6.1%, 30-year fixed.
Yeah. And they do study this stuff. So maybe we should be taking a look at those facts. That's exciting.
Well, guys, we've been telling you guys, and I hate saying the word telling because it sounds egotistical, but we have been telling you that we are absolutely at the beginning stages of a 25-year real estate boom. And if you're not feeling optimistic, and here's the proof as to whether you're feeling optimistic or not, whether you're taking the actions of someone who is confident that their tomorrow is going to be better than their today, let alone their yesterday. And if you're not, then you're going to miss essentially the housing boom. You're going to be watching from the outside as agents do transactions and the train leaves the station without you. That's how fast we think the market's going to turn around. And you're seeing the breadcrumbs of what's going to happen. We're not talking about Fannie and Freddie. We're not talking about all the other reasons. We're not talking about demographics. Just based on the 2 points that Julie Harris just gave you, you should be super excited. You are in the right place at the right time. And if you've ever told yourself, if I'm ever in the right place at the right time, I'll make the most of it. When my big eagle flies over, there's all kinds of old sayings around, winning the lottery, basically. You are winning the lottery right now. It's time for you to cash in your ticket. All right, let's get to our next point, Julie. Oh, and remember, guys, we're not going to get to all of our points. We never do, but we do very comprehensive.
I think we're at the finish line, actually. That was number 8.
Okay, well, you can get all the notes from going to harrisrealestatedaily.com. Point number 8, Julie Harris.
Well, that was it. It was about sales. Now, Fannie Mae says just under 5 million. NAR says about 4.5. Zillow's a little bit lower than that. But at least we're going the right direction. There's been so many reports last year, the first quarter this year. They're like, we might not even make it to 4 million. We have all of these factors that we talk about of the upcoming real estate boom, the demographics, all the things we talk to you guys about. You need to stay informed and not just be reactive to the silly headlines that people are just trying to get you to scroll and click or trying to get you to believe.
Well, let's talk about that briefly, Julie, okay?
Sure.
A lot of the headlines you're reading about housing, remember, your old friend Tim told you this, are politicized. Duh, you should already know that, right? But here I'm telling you right now what's going to happen. I'm looking at you guys, right? I'm looking right at my camera, trying to make a point here. I'm trying to be
Agent
dramatic.
Cam has been turned on.
I'm trying to be dramatic, right? Okay, so here's the deal. Fannie and Freddie are going to come out of conservatorship in some form. Fannie and Freddie have been a massive financial honey hole for a long period of time for one of the political parties. When you read headlines about Fannie and Freddie, bad, conservatorship ending, bad, interest rates are going to increase, bad, you're reading all these things, these people have a particular agenda, and they're the same ones that are predicting only 4.1 million home sales this year. Interest rates are going to rise. You know, all these types of things. They have an agenda. Look at the facts. When Julie, obviously we have our political biases, but when we're presenting information as a coaching client, or let alone on this podcast, we don't talk politics, we talk facts. Julie just hit you with the number stick. Were you paying attention? Hopefully you were. And if you were, you're feeling very optimistic about, frankly, the next 25 years in the real estate industry. And I congratulate you for realizing that finally you were in the right place at the right time. Julie, I know you well enough to know you have a thought on your mind.
Well, I mean, it is exciting. We joke that we live vicariously through our coaching clients because we love to celebrate their wins so much. And there has been a lot of, things are fast and furious right now. There's a lot of momentum out there. Maybe that's partially because we had a delayed spring market that started to get on fire a little bit, and we're riding that wave through the summer. But I kind of think that we're going to have a really great third quarter and even a great fourth quarter because of some of these trends.
Well, and for sure, next year is going to be, it's going to be the big comeback year for sure.
Sure. But the actions that you take today are getting you ready to thrive even more next year. So don't wait. Don't be in that sense where, oh, well, we're halfway through the year and it hasn't been exactly the way I wanted. So I'll just wait. No,
Jules,
most of our coaching clients are actually ahead of their goals this year.
Jules, look at 2026. It's the 250-year anniversary or celebration of America. There's going to be American flags everywhere. Obviously, interest rates are going to fall.
Lots of energy and enthusiasm out there.
Exactly. Jerome Powell is going to be on his way out. Interest rates are going to fall. Fannie and Freddie are going to be out of conservatorship. You're going to see a ton more mortgage products in the market.
And we already have inventory. You guys just have to go sell it.
I mean, do I really have to convince you guys that you're in the right place at the right time? Nope. I shouldn't. You should. And again, if you're not feeling like this, then maybe start, I would say, sifting and sorting more who you're listening to, who you're watching. And if you're a doom scrolling for people that are trying to make you believe that there's going to be a housing crash, you maybe want to tune some of those folks out because they do not have your best interests in mind. And we do our best to make sure we always have your best interests in mind. Doing this podcast, doing the coaching, doing the elite coaching, what we are doing at this point in our lives is we're trying to be in alignment with our highest and truest purpose on this planet, which is being of service to all of you guys. Professionally speaking, right? Your highest and truest purpose on this planet is to be of service to your community buyers and sellers. And the best way for you to do that in this marketplace is getting your head screwed on straight about the opportunity that's still in front of you and then getting your skills game on. The agents that are going to be running the markets are the ones with the best skill, not the most branding, not the most marketing, not the most like that, because everyone's going to have very similar marketing and branding because of AI. The agents that are going to win at the highest level are going to be the ones that know, have an idea, know how to explain some of the topics that we just explained to you today. Skills win. Not trying to convince somebody that you are successful through all your marketing and branding, but actually being successful because you took the time to learn how to be of service to other people. I know that doesn't resonate with all of you because I am asking you to actually do the real work of real estate. I am suggesting that everything you want in your business and personal life really truly is on the other side of doing what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it at the highest level. For those of you that this message resonates with, those of you who have the business and personal maturity to really embrace what this market has to offer, welcome to the club. Welcome to the club. And thank you for listening to today's podcast. Have a fantastic day. We'll talk with you on the show tomorrow.